Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you all had a great weekend. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and thanks for tuning in to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge, day number 5, I want to say. It's probably 5. I think because the first week always throws me off because we only have 4 challenges, so we're on day number 5. So, hope you're all doing well. If you are tuning in live this morning or afternoon or midnight in India, definitely let me know in the chat. Big good morning, afternoon, or evening too. We've got Kita and Richard and Megan and Cindy and Greg and Bruno, Cars. We got Tim and Kevin. A lot of awesome people in the house this morning. Again, let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm streaming live from Los Angeles right now. And we're going to waste no time because we're going to have some fun this morning. We're going to get a little bit fancy. We're going to look at some auto animate tips and tricks, some designing, some masking. We're taking things to new levels. So let me hop over to my screen, and we've got, we also have Lena. I'm bad with names, I'm sorry. And Sam and Lindsay and Booptastic, yes. We got Nakul from India. Yes, it's midnight over there, that's crazy. Steve from Wellington, New Zealand. Ooh, it's Tuesday over there, he's in the future. How's it over in the future, Steve? Because it's not too great in the present. Maybe it's better tomorrow. All right, so this is the landing page for the XD Daily Creative Challenge, behance.net/challenge/XD. You're going to go here for all your information on the XD Challenge. And if you haven't pressed that big blue register button at the top, definitely press it so you're notified when we release new challenges at 8 o'clock Pacific time every single morning. And you can also join us in Discord, and you will also get challenge notifications there. So here's Discord. We've got over 11,000 people, 11,000 awesome designers in here. So there's a daily challenge section right here at the top, and Sam has been posting, and Gus has been posting. So all the challenges will be posted right here. We've got some pro tips if you wanted to. You can get inspired by cool designs that we find throughout the good old interwebs. You can introduce yourself, let us know what you do for a living, who you are, and if you are someone like Gabby, who has been taking part in these challenges and being part of the XD community and just landed his very first job, go in there and congratulate Gabby, because that's super cool. We love hearing stories like that. So good job, Gabby, and I hope we wish you the best. You can chat, you can ask questions about XD, get tips and tricks, suggest features. Discord's a good time, and again, there's 11,000 people in there, so it's a great community. And we still have people coming in here we have Monir from Istanbul and Michelle from the Netherlands. Cool, Samuel's in the house, welcome. All right, so every single day, Monday to Friday at 11:30, you're gonna be joining me to kind of get some inspiration, see some fancy XD goodness, and then you're gonna share your work. You can either share it on Discord, in the design feedback section, or you can hop into Behance and you can use the keyword XD Daily Challenge, pop it there, we can find it, a lot of cool stuff, and throughout the week we will definitely be highlighting some of your amazing designs, and I'm really interested to see what you all come up with today. So, what are we dealing with today? Well, last week we kicked off on Tuesday with a landing page refresh, and we're doing another progressive challenge, so we're kind of looking at some problems, and we're tackling a case study. So we're looking at problems, we're kind of trying to come up with solutions and something a little bit nicer than what we may have seen way back in the day in like the 90s when websites were just not great. We tackled the search experience, so we started out fairly basic, then we expanded. Then we went to an integrated navigation experience, so we made sure that the navigation was all structured and nicely aligned. We took a look at some marketing priorities, and I'll show you that in a second. And today, we're going mobile, and we're gonna be tackling a fun animated splash screen. All right, so I'm gonna hop over to Adobe XD right over here, and this is kind of where we started. We started on day 1. We looked at a really not so great splash screen, and then we kind of explored what a much larger full width image splash screen could look like, with a very simple call to action. But then on day 2, we kind of noticed, there probably needs to be a little bit more to the search experience. So we expanded. Oh, this is the template for day number 4. I'll get to that in a second. Let me hop over to this. There we go. So we expanded on the search experience to add some filters, some destinations, date, arriving, leaving, how many people, that sort of thing. Then we tackled a better navigation experience. We used components so that when we update just one, they update throughout all the different artboards. And we added some cards at the bottom for far out destinations so that users can very easily book some of their travels. And today, we're going to be tackling a mobile screen. So we take a look at something like this. This isn't terrible, but when you load a mobile app, sometimes you get a little bit of a loading animation, and then you get some sort of a sign-in experience, right? So we're going to be tackling that. We're going to have a little bit of an animation, some login buttons, and that sort of thing. So we're going to jump straight into it. Let me hop over here. And right below here, I'm going to create a mobile artboard. So I'm going to grab my artboard tool over to the left, right over here. Boop. There we go. And I'm going to choose, let's say, the iPhone XS artboard. I'll just pop it right down here. It's so tiny and cute compared to the desktop screens. So I'm going to zoom right in here. I'll just name this splash screen. All right. Now, I will note that I'm going to get a little bit super fancy. I'm going to get super fancy today. Yours doesn't have to be this elaborate. You can go on this, the more simpler side, but I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to do some auto animate and masking and that sort of thing. So I'm going to start a little bit simple. I'm going to add a nice gradient to the background of this artboard. So I'm going to select the artboard like I have now, and over here to the right, I'm going to click on fill and set it to, let's say, a radial gradient. And in the middle, we're going to have a nice light blue somewhere right around there. And we can always tweak this later if we wanted to. And I'm going to set a little bit of a darker blue, not too drastic, because then if you go too drastic, then it'll just look very unnatural. So just like that, maybe I'll lighten this up just a touch, and I want to adjust the gradient just by pulling on this. There we go. That's a nice looking gradient. It flows really nicely. It's nice colors. And what I want to do is make sure I have this saved in my assets panel. So I'm going to press the plus button. So it saved it right here, and this I'm going to call mobile splash. This way, if I have multiple screens using the same gradient, I can always just make changes to one, and it's going to update throughout all of them. All right. Now in this splash screen, we're going to, again, get fancy. We're going to create some sort of like an airplane window. If you follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen something like this already. And Richard is already impressed by the gradient. Just stick around, Richard. We got some cool stuff coming up. So I'm going to grab my rectangle, draw out the window just like this. Place the window somewhere in the center of the document, just like that. And you notice that those smart guides help me throughout the process. And I want to round this out completely. So I'm going to do that. That looks pretty good. Maybe I'll make it a little bit larger. Just like that. I'm going to turn off the border. Now for this, I don't necessarily want it to be completely filled. So I want a little bit of a cutout. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this window, Command and Control D. And I'm going to change the color just so I can see it against the background. And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So I'm holding down Alt or Option and Shift, and then just dragging in just like this. So now I basically want to use this new shape to cut out the shape in the background. So I'm going to simply select both of those shapes. And over here to the right at the top, I'm going to use the Subtract option. Boop. There we go. And now we have a nice cutout of this window that we're going to be using to mask and, have some fun with this. All right, now on the inside, we want a few things. We essentially want a window area, right? So I'm going to grab my rectangle tool one more time and draw out, just like this, a window on the inside. This is going to be for the masking. Make sure this is nice and rounded, just like I did before. Move this down. Make sure everything is in place. Looks like pretty good. All right, so we're going to use this for the masking. I'm going to hide this for now. I'm going to turn off the border. I'm going to hide it just for now. It doesn't, I'm going to make it a little bit larger so it lines up perfectly. There we go. I'm going to hide that. And now we want a few additional things. So we want, Anna's asking, is this a plane window? It might be. It could be a plane window. It could be a spaceship window. You can definitely use your imagination. So I'm going to grab another rectangle and I'm going to draw out the actual window. So this is going to be the window here. It's okay if it extends off the outside of the actual window casing because it's going to be masked in a few seconds. So I'm going to make sure that it lines up. Let's make sure that it covers the entire window, or at least most of it. Now I want to round out just the bottom of it, but not in the sense of a rounded rectangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on this rectangle, add a bit of a point right about here, and you can kind of see me adding a point just like that. Boop, there we go. And then double click to make it nice and round. I'm going to pull it down, maybe adjust this a little bit. Maybe pull these up a touch, just so I have a nice rounded window. There we go. And I might want this a little bit darker, so it's not exactly the same color as the casing. And maybe I'll add a little bit of a border on the inside, make it nice and thick, but I'm gonna turn down the opacity on just the border so it just adds a little bit of a shadow, just like that. All right, I'm gonna make sure to move it behind the subtraction in the background. And again, it's okay if it's behind or if it's extending outside of the window because we're gonna mask it. And the way you do that is you grab the image that you want to use or the layer you want to use as a mask. So this, in that case, it's this one that we created on top of the shape. We're going to select both of them in the layers panel, just like this. I'm going to go to object at the top, or if you're on Windows, you right click on the layers right about here in your canvas, and I'm going to go mask with shape. And it's basically going to take all the elements that were below that layer and mask everything within it. So now I have something I can very easily call window. Just like that. And if I hop into the mask and I just move it around, you're noticing it stays within it. Perfect. I'm gonna leave it just about there. And what I might wanna do is add a little bit of a shadow underneath it. So I'm gonna duplicate the layer, and you could go ahead and add a little bit of a drop shadow here, but I want it a little bit stylized. So I'm gonna duplicate that layer, pull the sides inwards a little bit by using the Alt key, move it down a touch. I'm gonna change the fill to black, and then just decrease the opacity and make sure it's below that layer. There we go. So now we have a little bit of a shadow, just like that. Perfect. All right. So the window's looking pretty good, and you can imagine on our next artboard, we're basically going to grab these two layers and move them up, and you'll be able to see a nice background. Now, of course, we need a background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another rectangle. And again, it's okay if it extends outside the window because everything is now masked now, and you want to make sure to select the images inside of the mask or the layers inside of the mask before you select it or before you create another shape. And for here, we're going to create another gradient. This time it'll be a linear gradient, and we'll go for like a nice alien sky. So we'll go maybe a dark, like a light color at the bottom, or a darker color at the bottom, and then maybe a lighter color at the top, something like this. And let me go ahead and hide this window for now, just so we can see what, ooh, that looks kind of cool. It's like an alien landscape. And maybe I might also want some happy little mountains, right? Kind of channeling Bob Ross. So I'm gonna drag it a rectangle, double click, just create a little point right there. And we might want to pull this inwards and just have a little happy little mountain. I might want to fill it with black and then just decrease the opacity. Got a little mountain there. There we go. And I can very easily duplicate this layer, just move it over, and then adjust just like that. And now we've got these cool little mountains. There we go. Awesome. Cool. All right, things are looking pretty good. Hopefully the sound is working. Kita is asking about sound. Hopefully it's working, but I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that these window layers, I'm gonna group these, call this window, and make sure just move them on top of that layer. There we go. All right, so essentially, let me show you what we got. If we move this window, we have this window opening up, and we'll be able to see the nice sky in the background. We might want to also add a little bit of a shadow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this subtraction layer at the top, duplicate it, and then the one at the bottom, I'm just going to add a little bit of a shadow, just like this. I might want to dive in here, grab this layer, and just bring this in a touch. There we go. Increase the shadow a little bit, decrease the size or the harshness, opacity. There we go. All right, things are looking pretty good. Let me just make sure this is looking good. It is. Make sure we don't have any borders. We don't. All right, so now it's time to actually animate this thing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to grab the splash screen. I'm gonna duplicate it over to the right. So Command or Control D, boop, there we go. And now all we have to do, if you've never used Adobe XD before, all you have to do to animate is just design step one, or state one and state two. So I'm gonna grab the window, I'm gonna hop into the mask, grab the actual window group, drag this up just like this. And I might also want to move the background, the mountains a little bit. The one in the background is probably not gonna move as much, but the one in the foreground might move a little bit more. So I'm gonna just move this over to the side just like this. All right. And that's really all you have to do. So what I'm gonna do now is hop into prototype mode right here at the top, boop. and I'm going to grab the entire artboard. So I don't want to select individual elements. I want the entire artboard because we're going to have a time transition. So I'm going to select this little blue handle over here to the right, drag this to the second artboard, and over here under the interaction properties, I'm going to choose time. So not tap, not drag, but time. I'll have a little bit of a delay of somewhere around, let's say 0.6 seconds. And for the action, instead of a transition, which will basically just either cut or slide or dissolve, we want auto animate. And this will tell XD to look at the differences between the two artboards, and it will make some super cool animations. And Michelle is asking, does XD export to CSS? Not yet, as Tim pointed out, but it is coming soon. Andrew Shorten did sneak it on Twitter not too long ago, so something we're working on. All right, now for the easing, we're gonna go for in and out, so it's a little bit slower at the beginning and end. And duration, let's go for a 5-second duration just to start so you can see everything that's going on as the animation is taking place. And with that done, all we have to do now is press play at the top, and it's going to kick off the animation after a very short delay. So you can kind of think of this as like a loading animation. As the app is loading, which many apps do, this will kind of take place. You can use this as your logo, whatever it might be. And of course, you can get really super fancy with it. And Greg is asking when the next update is coming. We do have an update coming in July. And then, of course, in August, September, October, November, when Max is coming, that's going to be a pretty fun update. All right, so we've got our little bit of a window. Now, inside of it, we might want some sort of a login experience to kind of come out after the app has loaded. So to do that, we're going to get even fancier. I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. So I do have a little bit of a login. Let me grab it here. I'm going to copy it just because we're running out of time. I'm going to paste it over here. So we've got essentially these, what are these called? Text fields, that's what they're called. And we might want to use these to kind of come in after the loading animation has taken place. And if you don't know how these text fields are created, let me very quickly show you. So you can grab a rectangle. You can basically just draw one out just like this, right? And then these little handles on the inside, I can just drag these inwards like that. And then you can use icons, you can use text, grab some text, just type out email address, make sure I can see it. Make sure this is nice and black. There we go. Email address, and you can probably just drop the opacity just a touch, right? Just like that. Make it a little bit larger. So that's essentially how you create text fields like this. And of course, you can add a little bit of a drop shadow like I have under here. I probably want, actually, if I dive into here, to change the drop shadow to maybe a nice blue, just like that. All right, do the same thing here. All right, so now what we want to do is create a second screen. So let me actually just copy this and hide it for now. And on this screen here, I'm going to duplicate this. Essentially what we want is we want this window to kind of explode, and the form fields will kind of come into play. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all these layers over here in the layers panel, hold down shift and select the first one or the last one and select the opposite end. And I'm simply going to enlarge this until I have a nice background like this, right? And I can dive in here and make sure that the window is just moved up a little bit. And I also want to make sure that, because you're noticing as I scaled it up, the rounded rectangles kind of got skewed a little bit. So I'm going to make sure that they're all super nice and round. Just go through in these subtraction areas, grab the rectangles, make them nice and round. Super simple, right? And make sure also the mask is rounded as well. Perfect. And now I can make sure everything looks good. All right, so now that this is in place, we have our new background. And what I'm going to do is grab those text fields that I had just a few moments ago and just simply paste them. But I want to paste them inside of the window mask. So I'm going to make sure in my layers panel, I'm in here and simply paste. That looks pretty good. Maybe I'll want them a little bit further down the screen. And you will probably have to keep in mind that on the iPhone 10, there's a little bit of a home indicator at the bottom that you really can't have anything under there. So I'll leave a little bit of space at the bottom. And I might want to also change some of these icons, or at least these colors. So the sign up icon or the text, maybe I'll make just this color in the background. And this, I might want to go a little bit red, but not too crazy. Just a little bit lighter, just like that. All right, that looks pretty good. Not too bad. Of course, I can spend a few hours trying to tweak this thing to make sure the colors are really nice. And I'll change these shadows back to a little bit of a purplish red color. All right, so now that we've got our form fields in place, we've got our sign up button, we've got a sign in button, we want to make sure that they're also present on this artboard here, because let me show you what happens if I don't, right? I'll go to prototype mode, I'll select this second artboard, and I'll drag the handle over to the third artboard. And in this case, we also want a time transition after the animation loads or finishes. We'll have a delay of 0 seconds. We want to take place pretty much immediately. And we want it to go immediately to that third artboard. And let's go for a fairly quick duration point. Let's go for 0.8 seconds for now. So let's see what happens here. So we'll play this. This window will open up and it'll load the animation, and then it'll go to our login experience. But you're noticing it didn't really look like it should, because these form fields and the buttons were not present on the artboard before. So all you have to do in that case is I'm going to make sure to select them in my layers panel. There's a sign in and sign up buttons, copy. I'm going to go to this second artboard and I'm going to make sure to go into the mask and paste them, right? Make sure they're below the window, and I can just move them all the way down here. I might also want to space them out a touch so they kind of fly in. So I'll move that down. Maybe I'll grab the sign in button, move that down a little bit, move this down, and move this down just a touch as well. There we go. And I can also copy these, paste them into this artboard, again, below the window, just like that. I'm gonna ungroup them. Perfect, things are looking good. And make sure these are also below the window. All right, so now that these buttons and fields are on all the artboards, things should animate really nicely. So let's see this in action. Again, selecting the first artboard, let's press play. Here we go, window is opening, it's loading up the app. It's probably a little bit too slow, but we'll run with it. And then the form fields kind of slide in from the bottom and things look pretty nice. And of course, we can go through and make some changes if we wanted to. I'm noticing the window is a little bit too rounded, so I might want to just pull this back a touch. Same thing for this one, just up a little bit. And this is a great opportunity to use components. So if you make changes to one, it'll make changes to all of them, which I didn't do, so I'm catching myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the window and then make component. I'm going to copy that just like this. I'm going to paste it into this artboard and then just move it down. So now if I make changes to one of them, or at least the master component, it'll also change on the other one. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's play this one more time. Play, here we go. Here's the loading animation. You also notice the mountains in the background kind of moved really nicely. Oh, and I did notice that the window didn't look exactly as it should because it is not a component. So let me just fix that, make this larger. And components can be resized, overridden, all that fun stuff. So that should look quite a bit better. You can also, if you wanted to, you can add a little bit of that window at the top, right? Just and have some information. Maybe you can have this window just like this. Maybe I'll add a bit of a logo in there. Maybe this will be the Traveler logo. Traveler, just increase this a touch. We're going to be using Mr. Eves. There we go. Or I think I also changed it to, was it Good Times possibly? Yeah, there we go. So I can have that there. There's a logo, copy this, pop it into this artboard. Maybe I'll have it come down from the top. And then we have, oh yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, one more time. Here we go. Window opens, what's it called? The application is loading. We've got our sign in buttons, sign up buttons, and we've got our logo at the top. So that will just about do it. Again, a little bit fancy, a little bit advanced, but I'm trying to push you all to get super creative with something like this. I had a lot of fun putting this together, and I know a lot of you will really go crazy with some of these animations and login fields and so on and so forth. Definitely post it in Discord, post it on Behance, and I'll be back tomorrow morning with some more Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge goodness. We'll be tackling day number 6. And thanks so much everyone for watching. Did I spell it wrong? probably may have spelled it wrong. I'm not sure. I'll check it later. But thanks again, everyone, and stick around. We got some more XD streams coming up in just a few moments. See you later.